I have with me a couple of guys today. One that I've known for I'm going to say about half my life, and another gentleman that I heard about and am so excited to bring to you. These guys have a fantastic story, both separately and together, and so I thought you'd enjoy meeting them. Dino and Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having
Thank you
us.
for having us. It's great to be here with you.
So, Dino, you like me, you're a retired cop from Illinois, and you had a really terrific career. So, I'm going to ask you what everyone always wants to know: why'd you become a cop? And tell us a little bit about your career in the Chicago suburbs.
Well, thank you. Not to be cliche-ish, but I have to tell you, I'm a Chicago native. I was born in Chicago. So going to parochial school, I had to get there very early to warm up the lights in the church because it was a mass, chapel service in the morning. And while lighting up those old lights, I'd always see off to the distance a Chicago police officer praying. And I would actually look forward to go to warm up the lights and get everything set for the service. And that began my walk. It seems like God put a desire in my heart to pursue law enforcement. And what's interesting, I'm first generation born here. You see, so my family came from Guatemala. My father came from Greece. My stepfather, who raised me, he came from Vienna, Austria. So this was like a new thing in our family as being in law enforcement. And that began the walk. I just wanted to become a police officer. And it led all the way into my first application in 1988 as a dispatcher, actually. And from that dispatching, I went on to a northwest suburb in Cook County, and I became a civilian employee. They called them at the time police cadets, right? At age 19. And then soon there, barely 22, I went to the Chicago Police Academy Metro class. And thank God I just completed 30 years total serviceable in 2018. But I have to say that it was around 1989 is when I was mentored by an older detective. And he basically taught me and encouraged me to look at law enforcement through the better way, I'd like to say. So he introduced me from having head knowledge of God to heart knowledge, a relationship with Jesus Christ. And intertwining in my career, Betsy, the Fellowship of Christian Peace Officers, a not-for-profit organization that is across the country. It started in 1969 in California, and we have a local chapter out here in the Elgin area. We meet once a month, and those relationships there were very genuine and authentic. And those men and women who are also within the career and applying biblical principle and becoming optimal law enforcement professionals, I have to say I give God all the glory for giving me that insight and that wisdom. And yeah, so that was about 75 pounds ago. And you and I met obviously throughout our careers. And I just love and thank God for your husband, Dave Smith. As you know, he had interviewed me years ago as a DARE officer, and now here we are again. So it's just amazing the way how God orchestrates us together, really to continue to contribute to law enforcement in such a positive and God honoring way. So yeah, I finished my career as a police sergeant, and I can really relate with you. It's probably the best position out there, and I served that for about 12 years. And currently, I'm the president of the local chapter of the Fellowship of Christian Peace Officers. And I just have a passion for men and women to know God in a personal way. I don't convert anybody, I just share my story, leave it up to God. Everyone's welcome to attend. And I will say this to complete my intro briefly that, God is looking for men and women to be in position to serve God in law enforcement, especially at such a time as this.
Oh, truly. Now, Bob, how did you meet this guy, this young sergeant?
Well, Dino and I met probably now 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, I was at the time pastoring, but I was also helping out a local ministry organization here called Fox Valley Christian Action in the Chicagoland area. And I was helping them with summer camp. And so I was kind of the person running it. And we did training at our church. And I walked in to begin the training, and I saw this young lady sitting there kind of by herself, and just kind of went up to her and began to talk to her, and found out that she was local, found out that she was, I think, a senior in high school, junior in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And just through a lot of just little dynamics of things and talking with her, the Spirit of the Lord just said, your son is going to one day marry this young lady.
Mm-hmm.
And before I could even fully comprehend it, my son actually walked into the room, which he usually doesn't come to the training until later in the week, but for whatever reason, he showed up that particular time. And so Stephanie and my son, Breggie, kind of began a relationship. And through that, we met Dino and Michelle at a church event where my son was playing the drums.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was going to be speaking. I think
Yeah, you did.
What's happening. Yeah, I was speaking. I was going to be sharing. And Dino just came up to me, and we embraced one another and kissed and hugged one another. And we've been doing that ever since for the last 7 years. So I think our kids got married. Is it 3 years now? It'll be, Dino?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
3
right.
years.
2019.
So Dino and I, and Michelle, my wife Stacy, there's people that there's a uniqueness of I think of, you have and we don't even call them in-laws, we call them in-laws. We're in-laws. And we have such a relationship, which is very unique because we started having a relationship before the kids actually got married. Mm-hmm. Where a lot of times, parents are meeting for the first time at the wedding and, that type of thing. And so it's just been a blessing. Michelle and Dina are just incredible parents. Got 3 wonderful girls. And they've been just, Reggie is a son to Dino.
Yes.
Stephanie is a daughter to us. And that's
in fact, let's show people the family at the wedding, shall we? So you guys had such a beautiful photo. You both have beautiful families. What did you guys first talk about? And then what did you decide that you could do together?
Bob, you mind if I start a little bit?
Please. Yeah.
So getting back to the Fellowship of Christian Peace Officers, when we get together, we pray for each other. And it's not always about law enforcement, but then it is. So part of those prayers with these older men in the career and in their walk with God, I remember one mentored me to say, Dino, start praying for the spouses of your children like yesterday. And I'll tell you, that made a big impact. And I began to pray for the spouses of my daughters, asking the Lord in his will to deliver, men who have a relationship with Jesus, right? So that's what had happened. So a lot of great things happened through the Fellowship of Christian Peace Officers to encourage police officers to live an optimal life inside law enforcement, outside. So when Bob and I met through our children, I remember Pastor Bob, I remember telling Bob, I go, you know what? I really have a feeling that God has us prepared for something bigger than for our children meeting. And even now that we share grandparenting, our children now have a granddaughter born coming up on a year now. She'll be a year in January. Mm-hmm. God has shown, and with that, I'll let Bob talk about that, but how we both are working together in such an interesting time as this, when law enforcement is under such immense scrutiny, and with Bob's professional background in his ministry, and we just come together. So
yeah, God really had connected us. We have often talked about and thought about just, we love our kids, we love what God is doing through them, but it's much bigger than them. And one of the things that the Lord has kind of brought Dino and I together is Dino obviously has the experience as a police officer and has lived it. He's walked it. What I bring to the table is kind of the opposite of what you and Dino would have been doing years ago when you were actually active, running me down because I was creating chaos in the streets. So, but God took that and he turned that thing around. And here I am now, sharing and encouraging others to get out of that mindset, running the streets, and then the whole part of honoring police. We Dino and I started a ministry together called Building on Collaboration, and I have a book that we have out. It's called The Culture of Honor, Between the Lines, and you get this on Amazon. And so we've taken that and we begin this process of how do we teach officers, teach community, because I think we so focus on, let's make everything right with the officers, and yet we can do that. We can have this perfect department. We can have this perfect, officers doing their job, but yet you still have the problem in the community. Nothing's changed. So how do we work to balance that? How do we work to bring that together? And so one of the things that we do is I've done some work at a police department in the Chicagoland area, in the suburbs there, and it's called the Culture of Honor. And basically what we do is we bring together police officers, administrative workers, police, communication folk that work at the police department, and provide this opportunity to speak about the valuing of honoring one another. And the initial thought that some people come in with is, oh, well, they're going to come in and, tell us about, particularly with the whole thing that happened with George Floyd a couple of years ago, going to talk to us about, how we need to do different things differently. And, the whole race thing with George Floyd and all that stuff. And Betsy, we don't. We talk about the valuing of one another. How do we honor one another? And I will tell you, race has never been a part of our conversations. We've done this now for about 2 years. We've had 162 officers attend. And what's cool about it, they come, it's not a mandate. They come on their own. They come as part of their own volunteering time. I mean, how cool is that?
That's amazing.
You got these wonderful officers who's putting in their shift, their time. They want to go home, or they don't want to. Actually, they don't want to be bothered. I don't want to be telling you anything about me, but they come to these meetings, they sit in, and there's just a change in their paradigm because they hear the heart of other people. And what it does, it begins to create this avenue of, man, I want to honor you for who you are. And I'm not talking about honoring after 30 years of doing my retirement, or you honor me at my birthday. Honoring should be a part of our lifestyle. Right. Because we want to value people. If I honor you, Betsy, it is because I value who you are. I value who you are and how God created you. And then we also do this thing where there's this concept called creating space for grace. Even though we may have relationship, we're human. So I don't know, I may trip up and may offend you, but because we built relationship, because there's honor, what happens is that you've created enough space between me and you that allows me to hiccup sometimes, where it doesn't change our relationship, because there's honor and value there. And so we've had a lot of success with doing this with police departments, have done this with churches. So it's not just focused on police and community, but because of the era that we were living in, I kind of wrote the book a little bit more towards police and community. I had a guy out in California who bought the book and called me and said, "Hey, I wanted to let you know that your book saved my marriage."
Wow.
Had nothing to do with the police, had nothing to do with the community. It just had to do with the fact that there's honor there. So Dino and I are doing that. We're kind of really trying to build it up more and hitting different places, different police departments and communities and churches and that type of thing. So pretty excited about it.
Yeah. And, Betsy, if I can add that, us being around as long as we have in law enforcement, I'll speak for myself. The demise which shipwrecks a police officer is not in the physical realm or the cognitive realm. It is definitely in the spiritual realm. And that's supported by our friends in the FBI that, in 2005, the Human Behavioral Science Unit, these scientists, they put together an empirical study, right? And it's called Beyond Survival Towards Officer Wellness. I have to look at my notes because BESTOW is an acronym. But that has a lot that's rooted in honoring, right? And when you have a police leader, I mean, we can ask questionnaires of many law enforcement, active and retired, and they can probably say what's most challenging is what kind of culture is being cultivated in a police organization, right? So to have a police leader embracing, honoring their God, honoring their spouse, honoring the people they work with, right? They can then mitigate, as we know, we're taught to control and trust nothing from day one at the academy. But as of lately, I don't think we can do a better job to help officers how to shift gears when they go home, right? Or even as you get promoted, you don't want to control your people and not trust your people, especially with your spouse and your children. So when Bob and I have come together through God's grace and through the intertwining of the Fellowship of Christian Peace Officers and the culture of honor, we were invited to speak and teach at the Police Academy, Chicago Police Academy. And while we were there sharing our stories, someone in command wanted to see what's going on here. And after that, only by God's grace, the command staff had said, "Hey, we need you to kick this off at headquarters, Chicago Police Department." And it's a voluntary basis. And these are all pieces of the puzzle where we're at today. And, that's, I just wanted to add that, jump in on that with what Bob was saying. And I'm very blessed. I looked up to Bob as an older brother, not too much older, right, Bob? But, I learned so much in our relationship, and I take these personal spiritual notes, and he really makes me a stronger man. And I just want to honor Bob by saying that. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dino. Thank
You know, guys, and I guess Dina will start with you. We talk so much now about police officer mental health. I mean, it's a huge issue. You talk about the Chicago Police Department. We have been plagued at CPD with multiple suicides this year, and and it's not just Chicago. I mean, it's around the country. How important is faith in police officer mental health?
It's essential. It's oxygen. Really, it is oxygen for the vocation. I'm thankful. And Staff and Command is where I came across this study. So I was excited that executive police leaders are embracing that, right? And maybe it's a little through attrition. And of course, we add spirituality. And of course, I just want to make it clear, the FBI study doesn't talk about denomination or faith. That is a personal choice. But, here we are. Marksmanship has to be important, right? Understanding case law and application has to be important. De-escalation, but all that is rooted into where that domain of that spiritual is it being fed? How proficient are you? How developed are you? So to answer your question, it is the oxygen of law enforcement, and that transcends and everything else. But in our context, what we're speaking about, because of what police officers are faced, both internally in the department and externally, combating the false narratives, all those false voices. You have to have that anchor. You have to have that sense of oxygen where you're always breathing, metaphorically. Yeah.
Betsy, right. I would say we have, in fact, in the book of The Culture of Honor Between the Lines, there is a chapter in there called Healthy Minds. And Dr. Al Keating, who's on our team, does a great job in speaking to that. And not so much from a spiritual standpoint, but just from a standpoint of reality and life. One of the things I always tell the officers in these workshops that we do is that what you do isn't who you are.
That's right.
Who you are is a mother, a father, a part-time coach, a mentor, a brother, a sister. What you do is a job that you have chosen to work in, but it's not who you are. And so what we're trying to do is trying to help officers to realize that, yes, you have a job, but that job doesn't make you who you are when you're not working. And but yeah, the Healthy Minds thing is a great concept, and it is in our book. So if you want to get that book, The Culture of Honor Between the Lines, you'll see that in that. There's a chapter in the book there.
And Betsy, that culture of honor is a bold and loving mechanism where it legitimizes an individual, right? I understand that there are people out there that that they have been wronged. So we definitely seek to legitimize. However, if in our relationship building, if the individual allows us to present them with the motivators that could change their perspective, we look forward to that aha moment. And one of those aha moments is at the very end, I'll say, oh, by the way, Bob's son married my daughter.
Guys, where can people get the book, and where can they find out more about you and reach out?
Yeah, well, you can get the book on Amazon, The Culture of Honor, Between the Lines, and it is on Amazon currently. You can also reach us at bochonor.org. Again, that's bochonor.org.
That is so perfect.
Pardon me.
Dino, where can people find you if they need to get in touch with you?
Well, I'm just, by God's grace, with Bob on that website, but I will also add, because it's hand in glove, they're separate non-for-profits, but the Fellowship of Christian Peace Officers, FCPO.org. FCPO.org, you can find your local chapter, and either through the Culture of Honor, that website, my information is there as well. But definitely, the Culture of Honor is where your audience, we encourage your audience to take a look at. Absolutely.
You are two busy guys, and I can't thank you enough for spending time with me today. And if you'd like more information about the National Police Association, visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Ma'am, put the gun down! Put the gun down!
Last year, law enforcement officers were involved in hundreds of thousands of use of force incidents. A use of force incident is when an officer must use nonverbal tactics to gain control of a dangerous situation.
Put the knife on the ground.
In many cases, officers have no choice but to use force when a suspect doesn't comply with a lawful order.
Use of force is always ugly. No one likes it, especially police officers.
Together, we can help de-escalate these dangerous encounters. Help police officers by complying with their lawful orders. Don't attack, attempt to disarm, or flee from an officer.
Use of force is an officer's last option. Most incidents can be avoided by not resisting arrest.
If you feel you've been wrongfully detained by a police officer, then seek a legal solution after the encounter has been resolved.
Let's keep everyone safe. Comply now and complain later.